that item. But Wayless, there's always a curveball in his inventory, whether it's the Anivia, whether it's maybe another off-meta pick. He was, of course, known in previous years for farming those side camps with the Spirit of the Spectral Wraith, a few balance changes ago. Of course, it's very different in the new jungle, so they've lost that strategy of really power farming Wayless, but they have so many options, and Wayless, we're just waiting for a new champion from him.
We certainly are, but a lot of sort of very aimed and methodical bans to come through early on here for LGD as we hop into Champion Select. Azir and Corki being taken off the board, very intelligently removed from Xiaohu and Tail, who are so comfortable on those champions. Acorn's Rumble, of course, going to be hitting the bench as well as that Kassadin, who is just, in general, ridiculously strong.
Yeah, Acorn's Rumble. There's been teams that have been leaving it open against both Acorn and Flame. I can understand it against Flame. His Rumble is good, it's serviceable, it fits the meta, he's a very strong laner. But Acorn's Rumble, he's been synonymous with that champion for at least 3 years now. He's so good at space control with those ultimates, so ban it out. And as you point out, the Corki ban coming through. So of course, the Respect ban coming to Tail. Of course, with AD carries, we don't often see the targeted bans coming out to AD carries, but a lot of respect to one of the best performing members of Gamtee.
Yeah, and that one Corki ban can really just make Tail uncomfortable straight from the get-go. You don't need to waste too many more bans there, so easily throwing him a curveball there with that one ban, whereas Xiaohu takes a couple of extra bans in order to ban away, but they still manage to do it.
But there's a lot of chaos now in the mid lane champion pool. Azir, Xerath, it's either those two against each other or one of them in a blind pick. Both of them banned away. Kassadin, to some degree, has also been a common pick in the mid lane. And all this tumultuous banning has left up Lissandra. No changes to Lissandra. Still super, super strong, either in the top or the mid, and taken by Acorn.
Ridiculous flex pick options coming through from LGD. Gamtee have the option of picking up, a Janna here. She's still available. Rek'Sai is who he is just hovering over that one, but there are a lot of champions here that could still get through. Letme has had a lot of experience on the Gnar as well, so he could pick that one up if he wants to. Of course, hasn't had that 5.3 nerf come through just yet on his Mega Gnar form, not being able to be as available. Veigar being looked at yet again, and it's going to be locked in. And that could be going mid, but I have a feeling it might be support.
Yeah, I speculated that, the extra week off has given the Chinese teams time to look at other scenes, see some of the meta picks that are coming out. The Vegas one that obviously they picked up so fast was actually banned away in the second game away from Mata. Opened up the Janna pick for Mata, so he would have been happy with the result. But Veigar, if you can combine him with a very strong Trinity Force champion, like for example Corki, you can rotate to mid lane, put out the cage, you can't walk near that event horizon, and it's easy to take turrets. But with Corki banned, I kind of worry about this pick ban phase in general for Gamtee, because think about the champions they've been playing. Azir and Xerath and Corki are core champions to their strategies. Letme's Kassadin has been his strongest pick. They had to ban it on the red side. It feels like 4 champions that have been synonymous with Gamtee's successes have been taken away from them in the pick ban.
Yeah, it's a little bit frightening here, and the response on the side of LGD is going to be Kalista and the Leona. I love the Leona pick especially just because supports getting picked off by Veigars was a thing that was happening quite a lot in the previous matchup that we watched, but now that PYL going to be on that very tanky support, it's going to give him a lot more options as far as not getting blown up instantly.
But that Imp YL lane, again, it's going to be the Kalista pick. They tried it 3 times in week 4. They lost all 3 games. It does narrow your options in terms of vision control, so they are going to have to move around as a duo. If they can take an early turret, okay, it'll be less awkward, but if it's a long laning phase and you have to stand next to your Kalista the whole time, it's an awkward compositional fit for LGD. There's a lot of synergy between those champions, but I see you smiling as the horsey's been locked in on Gamtee.
Yeah, and Letme as well, hovering over the Ignite teleport. We'll see whether it goes through. A little bit of a shout out to Amazing Jay, who was running around on that horse, not too afraid to stay involved in the fights. Didn't even want to go for that ghost, which of course gives him that extra AD as well. Over on the other side, Imp and PYL looking at some options here. You can see they don't really need to worry about taking away the Vi as far as keeping Kalista safe is concerned, because Rek'Sai already there, but they're going to lock it in just so that they've got a ton of hard engage. LGD, they can fight whenever they want to with this comp.
I was going to say, this is an insane draft coming through from LG. Think about what they have here. They have AoE CC up the wazoo. We're talking Lissandra ultimate for the AoE slow. The Solar Flare coming out from Leona, not to mention all her other CC. The slicing Maelstrom from Kennen. Kennen's jumping into popularity with his 5.3 change is still very strong. on 5.2. And what's the best thing to combine with all this space control but a hopping hyper carry like Kalista? If they can get to the teamfight phase, I fear for Gamtee because there's so much teamfight control, and even the pick engage coming out from Vi. Crazily good draft coming out from LGD.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very scary for Gamtee, but they're answering with the Ahri pickup, which I really, really like. Of course, what do you do when you've got this team full of hard engage? You build a pick comp so that you never have to engage with this team, because you need to just remove someone from the map, reset, take an objective because they don't have all of their members on the board, and we'll see whether they can manage to, because if LGD make it to the mid-game even, I can't see a way for them to lose.
You just can't see that team fight. You know, you visualize it like, okay, what does a team fight look like that Gamtee wins? And you're like, all right, they could delete someone with a pick and, you know, an amazing charm and get a kill, but that's kind of the most. But look in terms of the lanes, Kennen's obviously going to be auto-attacking Hecarim a lot. If Hecarim starts Doran's shield or just gets some regen, we'll be able to power through there. In terms of jungle pressure, you're always going to give it to Rek'Sai maybe in the early levels, then move it towards Vi. In the mid lane, though, this matchup is kind of flatter to deceive just because the Sandra's excellent against Ahri in team fights, but might struggle during the laning phase with her short range.
Yeah, it could be scary, and we've seen Imp especially actually punishing Uzi's Kalista with that Graves pickup, now in the hands of Tail, and we'll see whether Tail can have a repeat performance of exactly that.
But one last consideration, the need for a lane swap on Gamtee is very, very strong. Graves, Veigar, okay, there's a lot of burst. Maybe you can surprise them with a fast level 2, but you cannot body out a Leona in lane as Veigar. With that gap close, once she hits level 2, if ever they're able to push to the level 2 advantage and get on the Veigar, he has low base stats, he won't be able to react to it. It's a very bad early laning matchup, especially for Gamtee. So even though we're talking about how wonderful compositionally it is for LGD in the mid game, even the laning phase, a little bit of horrors there for Gamtee.
Yeah, it's looking frightening. But ladies and gentlemen, let's get onto the Rift. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, on the Rift for LGD taking on Gamtee. And it is going to be LGD starting off on our blue side, of course, for Game 2. Going to be switching it up. But he's decided to go with the exhaust here on his flavor of Hecarim.
Yeah, we kind of question the Ignite teleport. Hecarim does give you a lot of burst between the Devastating Charge and maybe the Trinity Force proc if you can get farmed. The exhaust, I guess, is just to have an exhaust for Kennen. Exhaust has been always one of the best ways to deal with Kennen, because if you can exhaust him during Slicing Maelstrom, it's just a CC ability rather than just having the sheer burst damage.
We'll see whether it works out, because, of course, Acorn does have his friend Flame near him. You can potentially ask him for some tips. Of course, Flame, a fantastic Kennen player throughout the ages. Of course, sharing a position in the top lane here for LGD. And we'll see whether he is still around if he comes in through to our next matchup. Of course, LGD have been doing that a little bit, just switching out their top laners each series. As you can see, deep wards to come through, though, for Gamtee. They want to be able to get the lane swap that they're looking for. Tail and Sync Dream are hanging around this mid lane, and they do notice the fact that there are members in the top side. So Gamtee moving back down. And it looks like they might be able to get the lane swap they were looking for.
Yeah, LGD, they 5-man re-engage into the enemy jungle that they've already warded up. It does look like it's going to lead to a lane swap. You have to say that's a big win for Gamtee early, given the laning matchups they were dealing with both Graves and Kalista showing in the opposite lanes. The freeze is on, and the lane swap's been acquired. So early advantage, you'd have to say, to Gamtee.
Yeah, and the buddy system in the jungle still working out here as Let Me comes around. Actually gives all of the experience over to Huey. We'll see whether that's a decision that they wanted to make sure this Rek'Sai is getting the levels that they need. And we'll see how Xiaohu fares on this Ahri. Of course, loves a lot of that long range, a lot of the poke. And we'll see whether he can try his hand at this incredibly powerful Ahri pickup on this patch.
Yeah, the jungle follows on. The thing about the Ahri is that, look, it's a pretty good laning matchup against Lissandra, but Lissandra is probably the best counter to Ahri in team fights. Ideally, you'd have Lissandra in the top lane, and then in team fights, it's very easy. Just use the Frozen Tomb on Ahri, and it doesn't matter that she has so much mobility and consistent damage. If she can be focused down during the CC duration, basically that champion works so well. So they've kind of been forced into the Ahri pick. You remember, Xiaohu's champion pool has been significantly targeted with bans. Xerath and Azir, both banned by LGD. The strongest champion in terms of this patch balance is definitely going to be the Ahri, so I can understand why they opted for it, but the issue there again is that they're kind of forced into a mobility champion that's directly countered by Lissandra.
Yeah, not quite working out, but we'll see how it works as far as getting towards that laning phase, getting towards that mid game, and when Xiaohu has the opportunity to pick up some of these picks, because that's what he will want to be doing, and Gamtee will see whether they manage to.
Yeah, so again, a couple of connection issues coming through as we come back from the Chinese New Year. But still very slow where the jungle follows. Not too much happening across the map as we're waiting for this game to really kick into life.
Yeah, we are just going to pause it up just for a moment, see whether we can get that one back running for you. But as far as the early start, lane swap has been achieved here for Gamtee. That is definitely working out in their favor. But sort of giving Callista a free ride through this early game could be scary. But as you mentioned, Callista, a little bit of a problem here on the side of LGD in the past, just because PYL, he wants to be roaming all the time.
But you look at the team fight synergy and you're like, all right, they just need to baby Callista through the laning phase, just stay even or slightly behind. Of course, that's always a bit of a trap sentence because so many teams have been snowballed on because of the objectives in the mid game. But if they can do that, if they can execute it well, they have a lot of team fight damage at level 6. If they have Kennen coming into a team fight, they can potentially easily fight for the dragon. And in the late game, so many of their champions work so well against the enemy. The only real unknown, you have to say, is the Hecarim. If Hecarim can hit certain item timing, shrug off all the AoE magic damage, maybe he can be the frontline Gamtee's looking for. But otherwise, you take LGD's comp any day of the week.
Yeah, do Gamtee have sort of like a 1-3-1 split push option here as far as the fact that they've got almost double teleport in the Void Rush and the teleport coming through on the side of Let Me?
They definitely have the champions. The question, I guess, that you have to answer is, can Hecarim reach that kind of really big point where he can shrug off all the harass from Kennen? If he can ever push Kennen out of lane and they can execute on a 1-3-1 with their Rek'Sai, get the map control so they can have the aggressive neural network and be able to use those tunnels to be able to get the basically double global between the teleport and the tunnels, absolutely, that might be a big win for Gamtee, but it's a big if, especially when there's pick options from the jungle, there's pick options from the mid, there's so many options there for LGD.
Yeah, Imp, though, in this top side, is going to have frozen out that lane very effectively. Actually had to push all the way into his turret here. I'm not sure whether it was Let Me coming up there in order to try and get something done. You can see there's been a little bit of an action across this map. Already a couple of kills down, as we are going to hop over, see what China can see. Of course, 500 gold in the lead are LGD, but still, we'll see what happens. But that's going to be kills going on to Wayless there in the mid lane on this Lissandra. This is very scary.
Absolutely. I mean, Lissandra versus Ahri, we said the laning matchup is difficult, but when Ahri gets going, it doesn't really matter if you have the single target lockdown and all the extra AoE CC coming through from LGD. It's a problem here for Lissandra to be ahead of an Ahri simply in lane, but in team fights, all of Lissandra's kit deals so well with Ahri's.
Yeah, and that was actually Let Me and Huey falling down here in an early skirmish. We do have, of course, Sync Dream waiting in the wings up here on the top side. Imp going to throw out a Sentinel there as the Dragon's going to fall down. Let Me going to come through. The stun lands onto Imp here. Is he going to be okay? Gets knocked up as well. He's just getting destroyed. Xiaohu picks it up with a sneaky Orb Deception. And that is the kills evened here on the side of Gamtee, but Dragon falling.
Yeah, an excellent rotation coming through from Gamtee. It took 4 members, but they were able to delete Imp. They were able to get rid of the freeze that was happening. Hecarim picks up free farm. We were mentioning that perhaps the split push for Hecarim is the most realistic option for them if they want to win this game, avoid the team fighting phase. Deleting Imp early is an important start.
Oh, most definitely. And getting that opportunity as well, when we thought that, you know, having this lane swap situation was going to make Imp a little bit safer here. Of course, he was pushed up very far in that lane, and what does it get you? It gets you killed.
Gets you killed, absolutely.
But in this mid lane, everything evened up as far as that gold is concerned. 6% extra stats going to be helping out LGD, but is a decent beginning. So we're just going to check out Sync Dream's stats here. He's managed to pick up a kill and an assist so far, so going for that 100% kill participation Viger that we saw previously.
And just, you know, maxing the event horizon, as you'd expect, getting that CC duration from the 1.5 seconds up to the 2.5 at max level. You're basically a glorified CC bot as the support Vega. If you hit the correct event horizon, use your ultimate on an AP target. You're doing your job. But to his credit, Kennen, Lissandra, double AP, Vega ultimate could be doing a decent amount of chunking in teamfights.
Yeah, that's true, and we'll see whether the stasis coming through from the multiples on his hourglasses that you have to think are going to be coming out, plus Wayless's ultimate that he can use on himself, are going to help out there as far as making sure that Sync Dream can't get them locked out. But you're right, it could be very, very scary if Sync Dream manages to sort of have his way with this team.
You can see here, actually, ImpYL are able to aggressively invade and steal away the enemy blue buff. So their rotation's definitely in the advantage here for LGD. They're not ahead much in gold, but you can kind of see that in terms of map vision and map movement, they're doing very well.
Already getting aggressive. Ooh, that Glacial Path not going to be taken by Wayless. He did have the ultimate available. Xiao Hu was very low on mana. But of course, Spirit Rush, once you've activated it, doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, no mana available from Xiao Hu. Obviously was counting on picking up the blue buff in terms of timings. They took it right on spawn, though, so that's a big advantage for LGD. But Sync Dream, he wants to get an Event Horizon to maybe get the pick on him.
Yeah, he's looking for something. Does get the stun, but of course, Huey, he just wants to pick up a Grump.
Yep, so they back away. Of course, this is the
That's
competitive.
a Krug, in fact.
The Krug, sure. It's the competitive debut for Huey. So again, we don't know much about this player. Obviously, struggles a little bit this game. Behind NCS, Tavio has been powerful. I mean, the Warrior enchant is a big pickup. But look at this, the teleport's coming in.
Yeah, Acorn wants to make something happen. Event Horizon going to come down, but in fact, Acorn, he must have got launched at by Let Me in that top side.
I believe he might have cancelled the TP. I'm not sure if the Devastating Charge cancelled it, and the ultimate was not used by Let Me. But the result, at least, is that no teleports come through.
Yeah, Wayless did manage to pick up that turret there as well. And Blue Xiao Hu's flash there in the mid lane. He did not want to get exploded by that Lissandra, of course. When his ultimate's on cooldown, it's very, very dangerous because you do not have that mobility. And of course, when you have no mana, you can barely do anything in response. So playing very scared is Xiao Hu here in this mid. He is down on that CS as well, about 22 there in the mid lane. So getting a bit dangerous.
You have to say the ImpYL, what they are doing with those rotations, we see. The bigger thing about the rotational play that's come through is it's been the complete lane rotating. It's not been PYL just sitting in lane with Imp and farming for a long time. They're rotating. They're getting enemy objectives. They're still getting the wards down together. Okay, it means that Imp's been out of lane, so he hasn't been able to build up a big CS advantage over Graves. Maybe with the Hurricane now, he'll want to be in lane a bit more for wave control. But they're not being kind of pigeonholed into forcing Imp to sit in the lane with PYL.
Yeah, and Schwen actually looking for an opportunity here on the top side of the map. Let me just farming fairly safely, and we'll see whether he goes through to try and pick up this cannon creep. But Schwen deciding that this is not his opportunity. Huey going to come into the mid lane and help Xiao Hu out as far as relieving that pressure is concerned. Wayless, very scary on that Lissandra. He's going to go back, finish that Morellonomicon. We'll see what else he can pick up as well. Oh, full Sorcerer's Shoes being completed, and this Lissandra definitely looking great moving into this mid-game.
Yeah, I actually thought she'd struggle a little bit in lane against Ahri, especially in early levels, being medium range against perhaps the best champion to deal with 600 range champions in Ahri. Lissandras can struggle in lane. Of course, when you hit level 6, unless there's a jungle gang, it's very hard to get the assassination onto Lissandra. But she's navigated the early levels, already got a big 27 CS advantage. Of course, the blue buff leaving Xiao Hu with no wave control because he was out of mana. Wayless, you know, he's very well respected in the Chinese scene. We've seen flashes of brilliance from him so far this season. He's doing very well as we speak.
Oh, he certainly is. Sick Dream did manage to clear out some wards, but thus far, things haven't necessarily been working out for Gamtee, even though they haven't been giving up any kills. They've sort of just been bleeding gold around this map so far, and it's been the whole outer ring almost taken on the side of LGD, and you have to think that that bottom lane, it's not going to be around for much longer.
No, the global gold is definitely helping out LG. Specifically, Leon is going to be overtuned with the two structures falling down. And as you point out, why not get the third outer turret just to start putting the aggressive vision in, roaming with ImpYL, and starting to get picks. And of course, Vega, when you're behind, it doesn't offer you very much, barring, of course, as we mentioned all the time, that's done.
Oh, yeah. And if Gamtee can sort of stay up in this game, is losing that outer ring not as important? Just because if they manage to get that pick, which, you know, LGD might come a little bit too far forward into their jungle in order to get the next row of turrets, is that going to work in their favor, or is this just all about LGD having control?
Well, the issue with losing your outer ring of turrets is that we've already said that they want the 1-3-1 push. It's much harder to set up a 1-3-1 push when you're significantly behind in objectives because there's so much space for the enemy to get some aggressive wards in, try to roam and just kill you while you're going for that split push. You don't have a turret to back away from. And with all the pick pressure, if there's ever any dark areas of the map, with the 4 sweepers and, of course, the eventual roams coming through from LGD when they get this outer ring come through, the pick potential is so damn high that I don't see how they're ever going to be able to opt out of the teamfight phase and split push against this LGD lineup.
Well, Gamtee do manage to answer with an outer turret there on the bottom side of the map. Dragon has respawned here as well. LGD Going to be looking for that one. They, of course, have a lot of vision around this map, of course, with all of those outer turrets falling down. They've had ample opportunity to get that vision down. Looking to put a little bit of pressure around this red buff, but he's going to have to leave. Imp and Acorn both here, and it just looks like the jungle on both sides belongs to LGD.
Yeah, but Gamtee, they're trying to answer with the dragon. In terms of warding, I believe that LGD maybe has slight vision this is happening, but they seem to be happy to opt into the trade. If they're giving up both their red and blue buff control, though, just to pick up the first dragon, don't know if that's much of an advantage or a win for Gamtee.
That being said, Gamtee, after picking up that first outer turret for themselves, have got back into calling distance of that gold gap. And LGD, of course, we did mention the fact that if both of these teams are even moving forward, things are going to go well here for LGD, but we can't count Gamtee out just yet. And we'll see whether they have some plans for how to sort of deal with the incredible teamfight wombo combo potential to come through from LGD, because it's going to take some incredible positioning play. As Slicing Maelstrom actually going to come through in this top side. Schwen's here as well. He's going to get Assault and Battery. That interaction was hilarious, and that was the longest Zenith Blade I've ever seen. PYL picks up the kill.
Even with the Merc Treads, the CC duration between the Assault and Battery, the Slicing Maelstrom, and all the stuns coming through is just insane. That's what we're saying. When there's space to have these picks, when there's an enemy red buff that hasn't been defensively warded by Gamtee, getting a pick so easy when you have so much damn CC.
Yeah, it was just terrifying to watch, and just probably thought that he was robbed at that stage, just because used that Onslaught of Shadows, thought he might have got out of there, but of course, having that weird interaction with the Assault and Battery, and then just the most incredible Zenith Blade I have ever seen in my life.
It was definitely a max range from what I could see. I didn't think, but with the large model size, for once, Hecarim's hefty frame maybe held him down there. Just a little bit easier to pick up the kill.
Yeah, and Acorn then just proceeded to farm out that top wave, and does have a decent lead up there. Of course, the farm ahead by about 15 CS, but doesn't have the Zhonya's Hourglass just yet. And how does that go as far as answering a Hecarim split push is concerned in the late game? I mean, surely Hecarim's going to get to a point where he can just shrug off the damage from
I absolutely think that will happen, but again, how do you get to a split pushing force without wards? How do you get to a split pushing force without, say, pink wards or green wards to just open you up space to know that you're not going to get picked by the 50 seconds of CC that we're seeing come through from LGD? That's kind of the difficulty, is at this point, Gamtee needs items. Specifically, Hecarim, needs, say, the Banshee Veil into maybe his first Giant's Belt item. And the rest of the team, they need items to just be competitive at stopping any other objectives in the map falling down. They don't have the gold to be able to buy the pink wards, to refresh the green wards, to counter out the 4 sweepers already picked up by LGD. They need to balance vision control, especially around their Hecarim, with defensive and offensive items. And that's going to be such a tricky balance to follow.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, and we'll see whether they can manage to do it, because I'm just so frightened for Gamtee here. And Gamtee showed a fantastic performance coming through, but we're going to hop back onto the Rift, and we're just going to see Wayless dead instantly.
Oh, well, the Event Horizon into all the burst damage coming out from the Graves. After laning phase, 2.25 second stun coming out from the Event Horizon. Sets it up easily. An easy kill for Tail.
Yeah, and that's going to be the kills evened out yet again here for Gamtee. Of course, losing a lot of their jungle buffs. That's going to equal about 1,000 gold advantage, but you can see, with an extra turret up as well for Gamtee, I mean, they can take that one and completely even out this gold game.
Absolutely. I mean, to get a second turret feels almost robbed, but I guess LGD, when they're isolated, they have a lot of CC, skirmish CC, but they need their Kalista to be in position to be able to clean up. And with Kalista dead, a lot of their crown jewel of their comp that they're kind of building around just isn't in position to be able to counter out the pressure being applied by Gamtee.
Yeah, and Jahu heading down into this mid lane yet again, has picked up his first kill now with that one earlier on. So does have the needlessly large rod as well as the Morellonomicon. Really starting to be able to definitely clear out the waves here with that Orb of Deception, but now going to be able to threaten a lot with these picks as well. And do you think that the Zhonya's Hourglass needs to come through early, or is he able to go for that Rabadon's Deathcap, have that one-shot potential?
I'm kind of in two minds, because you kind of need the stasis to perhaps dodge one of the AoE CCs, but there's so many other CCs that maybe the Merc Treads is perhaps the more important buy right now. And now that you have enough AP to really mow down those minion waves with your Orb of Deception, just picking up the Merc Treads to have a defensive option. I mean, it almost feels a bit futile not having a QSS, just because, again, CC duration being reduced doesn't mean much when you have so much lockdown CC like LGD does, but stasis I don't feel offers enough, even with the ability to be untargetable for 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, and we can see now at this sort of 16.5 minute stage of the game, Tail now having quite a lead in that farm, and of course with the kill over the death here on the other side of the map, as Syncdream actually forced a flash, the Burrow going to dodge out of the way of the Solar Flare here, as well as Gamtee going to try and collapse and pick up a kill. They know that that really important ultimate is on cooldown. Onslaught of Shadows here as Letme comes into the backline. Wayless gets exploded yet again, and Gamtee get a couple of picks that they really wanted.
I don't understand how they're getting so many kills with flashes available. The ultimate is still available, but from Wayless. Just feels like lazy play coming out from LGD and Gamtee. We wondered how they were going to get back in this game. It's the pick action in the mid game. They're going to be the first to get to at least the second outer turret, and they're working their way towards to be the first to get the third.
Yeah, and Imp is still in this bottom lane as well. They're looking to keep this pressure up and maybe even take the inner turret here in the mid lane. They've got Tail, who's got a lot of damage with that Infinity Edge, and look at that, just setting up a little bit of a ring around the inner turret, and that's going to mean Gamtee answer with 2 turrets and 2 kills, looking fantastic. And look at that, the gold lead that LGD had early on, it's gone.
The Event Horizon usage is very, very smart in that case. Basically, it acts a lot like Gragas' ultimate used to a few years ago. It just disengages all of the enemy team away from their turret, because especially melee champions cannot walk near the turret to be able to clear waves, so you pick up an unanswered second turret. Very, very smart. So watching the replay coming through, so Cannon teleports onto a ward and gets instantly blown up by Tail. That was just poor teleport usage from Acorn, usually the rotational god. And then Gamtee continues with the engage, the Event Horizon onto Wayless in combination with the fear coming through from the Onslaught of Shadows is massive, and both of them are bursted down instantly.
Yeah, and that was just stunning use. Getting that fear to make sure that Wayless just walks straight into that huge stun just means that he couldn't do anything for so long. And you mentioned the fact that he had Flash and Ignite off cooldown. He had no opportunity to use them.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird to me that Gamtee is the one that's able to layer their CC optimally, given how many CC options there are on LGD's side. But LGD, whenever they pull out these Kalista comps, things just fall apart.
Yeah, it's true. And this is sort of playing into the hands of Gamtee as well. We've credited them, especially recently, on their abilities to rotate around the map, especially in this mid-game, and create pick opportunities that they're looking for. We give this sort of to Syncdream as far as a lot of that pick potential is concerned, and now having him with this Event Horizon, which is causing so many opportunities, it's looking great. That being said, LGD still able to take away almost all of the neutral objectives. And
look, we see a lot of Hecarim in the LPL. As we see, Hecarim's probably not going to be able to protect this top turret with so many people rotating, but Gamtee, they want to fight.
Yeah, they're trying to come through. Huey's here. There's the Prey Seeker to come down, but this inner turret is going to fall. Imp just going to jump away from it after it dies. That is going to mean that LGD are ahead by a turret. You can see having those 2 inner turrets down in the mid lane, though, the 2 turrets leading towards that inhibitor down in the mid lane is going to open up the map a little bit more here for Gamtee, you have to think.
And Gamtee, they're rotating around the dragon. They're trying to clear out this pink ward. There's 2 pink wards down, so LGD have complete information about what's about to happen, but I don't know if they're in position, even with all their AoE layering of ultimates, even with all their flashes available, barring PYL, they should lose the dragon here.
Yeah, this dragon going down incredibly quickly. LGD unable to answer in time, and capitalizing on some interesting back timings are Gamtee, and managed to pick up the objective for it.
I feel like Onslaught of Shadow is kind of the unsung hero of this Gamtee comp, just because the amount of scatter you get from the fear proc that comes after the initial hit just allows the Event Horizon to be lined up. We saw that already with the deletion of Wayless, even though he had Flash available. Sorcerer's Shoes on Wayless might actually prove to be kind of a big deal, because we always talk about how Lissandra basically can be a wonderful frontliner. She can go into the front of a fight and have 5 seconds of intargetability. If you're just exploded in the first few seconds of that, it's kind of a trivial fact. You know, you are not an effective frontliner if you're not able to use your stasis, and that's what Event Horizon is doing in this game.
Yeah, Baron going to be started up here and do a fair bit of damage here to Schwen. We'll see how this one goes. You can see it's going to be 2 dragons to 1 here in favor of Gamtee now. And Schwen just going to take away the blue buff. This is sort of what is keeping LGD in this game, is the fact that every single buff seems to be going to them across this map.
And you can say, though, if they can open up a ward pressure around Baron, if they can get exclusive vision around Baron, you cannot face check this LGD comp if you're Gamtee. That's kind of the big issue. There's so much lockdown CC that if they can get exclusive vision around Baron, maybe that's their way to finally wrestle this game away from Gamtee. They're going to need to be so careful when face-checking any brushes, just because, again, the pick potential just keeps going and going on the LGD side.
Yeah, and we haven't seen their successful layering of the CC. We haven't seen this 5v5 team fight that LGD are looking for. And if we don't, they may actually lose.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a very tentative game. That's kind of the big thing to take away, is that Gamtee, they're navigating very well around a comp that LGD's run a few times, you know, stacking these AoE CCs. We saw this in their first game last week, where they were really able to blow away a team, again, with a very similar Kennen Engage comp. They answered it the subsequent game with a Janna pick. There's no such disengage available here for Gamtee. Look at this, having to respect Akon with the flash.
Yeah, actually, he's going to use that Zhonya's here as well, and there's the slicing Maelstrom, but it's not enough. Uses everything except his teleport and can't survive. And this is Sync Dream. He didn't even flash.
And we talked about Tail on his Corki. He's getting much the same rotational pressure and mid-game damage on this Graves. So even though Graves not as known as those Triforce users for mid-game pressure, we all know about his damage potential, just his damage between his QR. And with the setup CC and people being in stasis, the melee range buckshot into collateral damage doing so much damage.
Yeah, and it's almost working out in exactly the same way as we saw previously in the first matchup of the day. Of course, just having that Graves do so much burst damage, very similar to that Corki, as you mentioned.
Yeah, whenever playing from in front, whether it's the Corki picks or the Graves picks, Tail looks so well. They're rotating so fast. They're trying to get the inhibitor turret here.
Yeah, and that quick draw giving Tail a lot of attack speed here as well. They take half the health off that inhibitor turret, not wanting to push their luck too much at Gamtee, but you can see, able to get the picks that they wanted to. And against an LGD lineup who were looking fantastic coming through, even against some of our top teams.
And you can see the mindset in players like Tail using the quick draw aggressively to get turret damage against a team with, what, 4 members with unbelievable lockdown CC. They're so confident. They understand they're ahead. They knew when Akon showed he doesn't have flash, he doesn't have slicing Maelstrom. They're communicating so well. This is the Gamtee we saw that went 3-1 last week with great rotations and just great team communication.
Yeah, but I mean, if we have a look at the standings here, Gamtee are still 7-13 in comparison to the 12-8 that is LGD. I mean, as far as the standings are concerned, LGD should be winning this game handily.
We have to also take into account recent form. The
yeah,
3-1 last
exactly.
week. LGD's been in form, but Gamtee, since picking up Xiaohu in, I believe, week 3, maybe week 4, they've been on an upward momentum. Sure, they lost 2-0 to EDG, but basically everyone's dropping to EDG in such fashion. Gamtee are a team on the up.
Yeah, and both of these teams, actually, if you go through the last 3 games, it was Gamtee winning against King, whereas LGD actually lost in the last couple of weeks against King, and both of these teams tying with OMG. So, very, very contentious game, and from the outset, it looked pretty scary here for Gamtee, but they're using their comp so beautifully well.
Well, they're playing around the long cooldown, aggressive CC options on LGD by split pushing, by grouping and just sieging. In a 5v5, if the first pick comes on to, say, Xiaohu on Tail, sure, they'll still lose a team fight, even though they're 1,000 gold ahead. There is excellent teamfight potential on LGD, but we haven't seen that layering of CC, have we, in the first 25 minutes? And if they continue to avoid that and maybe go up a gold lead in the next 10 minutes, anything's possible.
Yeah, it's looking very scary. That being said, I mean, Acorn does have a lot of farm here on this Kennen. Event Horizon going to be down here for Sync Dream. Doesn't find any targets, and you have to think that that might be an opportunity for LGD to aggress onto the Gamtee lineup. They rely very heavily on not only that Event Horizon, but just Sync Dream in general to have everything available to get these picks.
It's important for Let Me here to rotate to the top lane. There's a massive minion wave. Of course, both outer turrets down in the top lane, so they need Let Me to collect all this farm. He hasn't gone the very greedy Trinity Force build, but Chuen is caught with some damage, should live.
Yeah, that charm is going to land quite nicely here from Xiaohu, but Chuen pretty tanky now with that Hex Drinker, and of course the Merc Tread's giving him a fair bit of magic resist. Gamtee now setting up for this dragon, available in another approximately 12 seconds. See whether they manage to pick that one up, because you can see now they have a lot more control over this map.
I do like that Let Me's gone away from the Trinity Force. Okay, it has incredible synergy with Hecarim, his engaging, devastating charge. Trinity Force proc and First Order does a lot of damage, but spending that 3,700 gold on other items, specifically the Spirit Visage and Frozen Heart. He is a very, very strong frontline tank, and if he'd gone for the more DPS-orientated build, he would have just been exploded between all the AoE CC and AoE magic damage available on LGD's side. He is a very, very strong frontline tank. Okay, it's not the big damage, but the other members of Gamtee are doing damage aplenty.
Oh, they most definitely are. And one thing that I didn't quite notice here on the side of Gamtee is the fact that they have 2 exhausts here as well. And when you've got all of this consistent damage coming through from the likes of a Kennen and Lissandra and Kalista, you've got more of this ability to stop that from coming through during these team fights. And that might be how Gamtee manages to answer in those situations, even if they don't manage to get a pick.
It does feel like there'll be always an exhaust available for the Kennen. Even, you know, in the late game when Kennen's ultimate, of course, on a fairly short cooldown. Fights don't happen more often than every couple of minutes, and of course about a 4-minute cooldown on that exhaust. Having one available also, and then just if Syncdream is completely on point with his use of the Event Horizon, and then maybe if Kennen doesn't go and pick up, say for example, a Banshee Veil, which is not usually an item you expect Kennen to be picking up, if he can never get the Slicing Maelstrom in the right position, it doesn't matter that they don't have Janna. The disengage from just the Event Horizon will be very, very potent against this Kennen.
Oh, most definitely. We'll see whether they can utilize it. And we mentioned Tail and spoke about his Corki, the fact that if he gets that, thing's going to be scary. But Wayless is getting caught yet again, forced to use that flash over the wall. Schwen going to get out with the Vault Breaker here as well. But that's going to be Onslaught of Shadows traded here for that flash. And you have to think that that's probably working out quite well here for Gamtee.
Yeah, Gamtee, they're ahead 700 gold, but there's so much CS across the board coming through. PYL's caught. Don't think Tail has quite the damage to explode him, though.
Not quite yet. Of course, that Static Shiv is there for a little bit of extra burst, but without that Last Whisper, it's going to be quite difficult to kill this Leona. We did highlight this a little bit earlier on, the fact that Leona, just a naturally pretty tanky lady.
So definitely, one of the issues for Gamtee is they want Hecarim to be split pushing. Doesn't have the mana, so he's going to have to back now, but they kind of need Hecarim in the front line just to, you know, be eating the harass, just to have the potential to always counter-engage with the Onslaught of Shadows. Just because if Syncdream's Event Horizon is down, that's the key moment for Acorn to rush in with the Flash Slicing Maelstrom. That's the key moment for Wayless to gap close or Twen to use the Assault and Battery to engage. Hecarim is great at dissuading that just because, again, he can scatter the team with the Onslaught of Shadows, and just splitting the threats, that's basically what Gamtee need to win a fight, is to split the threats, split the AoE, because if the layering's ever perfect, it doesn't matter if they're 5,000 gold behind, LGD will win a team fight.
Oh, yeah. Being said, I mean, you mentioned Mercury's Treads to come through here for our members of Gamtee, and you can see already 3 now on the entire potential front line of Gamtee with Let Me, Huey, and Xiaohu picking up those boots. So you can see PYL may have gotten caught out, is forced to use that Flash Solar Flare onto Huey to stop everything from happening, but Let Me's here, has the ult available here as well. He's jumping in. That's going to be Slicing Maelstrom. He gets into the backline as Acorn. The Zhonya's Hourglass is there as well, but Wayless going to finally manage to pick up a kill for himself. Gamtee want to continue this one. Imp gets caught, but not going to be answered as Gamtee are too low to try and get on top of that Kalista, and they successfully disengage after only losing one. But have they? Because PYL gets thrown in with a Fate's Call. He's going to die, but can Imp get the resets? The stun comes down. A double kill now for Wayless. Theoretically a triple if we extend this fight out. And LGD, they get the team fight they've been looking for all game.
Let Me tried to be the tank his team needed in the front, but the big issue there for Gamtee was they were fighting around terrain, they were losing vision, they weren't able to auto, and they were really struggling to get any follow-up damage in. So the play from Acorn was genius. He went in with the Slicing Maelstrom on one member, and you're like, alright, he's using it just on the tanky Hecarim, it's a waste. Flash changed position, got an engage on the remaining members of Gamtee, and that CC opened up the time for the backline to be destroyed there. The Hecarim was taken out first, and then Imp jumped around, and once the Ren sets start, LGD are going to win a fight.
And the successful re-engage with the Fate's Call was also fantastic from Imp, knowing the fact that Gamtee were looking to try and disengage. Of course, they lost Let Me, so they didn't have any of that front line left available. And it was just beautiful to see. And even though he got caught by an Event Horizon, it didn't matter, just because every member of Gamtee, they'd used all of their tools.
Absolutely. It was a suicide mission for PYL, but a very successful one to get the first knock-up from Fate's Call. We haven't seen that so common, but of course they were just around the bend at the Raptors, knocked up by the initial Fate's Call retargeting, and then they just went in there, got the clear-up kills. Okay, Imp was stopped from maybe the triple or penta, but it was still a big win for LGD.
Yeah, and Acorn now with teleport advantage over Let Me here. Of course, Let Me using that teleport to get into the last fight. You can see Gamtee, though, they're going to start the Baron. They're looking to try and get something done.
Yeah, they're going to have to peel off very quickly.
Oh my gosh, PYL gets bait called out of trouble as Wayless tries to come in, gets stunned immediately. Is he going to die? No, he doesn't, but Acorn teleports in and starts picking up the kills. You can see everyone is melting. Wayless and PYL have fallen down, but it's not going well as Let Me trying to do something. Schwen picks up the kill, and only Sync Dream alive. LGD, they might just pick up a Baron.
The difference between a won and a lost team fight was Wayless finally getting out of CC to use his stasis and become untargetable. And for once, Acorn was able to get the flank with the teleport, got in the backline, exploded one member of Gamtee, and they won the fight from there.
Yeah, Imp actually looking to try and get some damage down on a Sync Dream. Jumps over the wall here. Event Horizon's going to be available relatively soon, but it doesn't matter. Arrow to the head, and he's going to be able to easily pick up that kill. Almost secures the A. Zonya's going to be used to stop Acorn from dying to Baron. And in fact, Huey's going to use the ultimate to try and get in. He doesn't have any tunnels near the Baron, though. Oh, actually, he did. He just decided not to go on to them.
There was some hilarious interactions happening there because of the passive. Imp was opening up distance from the Baron, actually forcing the low health Chuen and Acorn to retank it. There was multiple times when they could have fallen. Didn't, importantly. Gamtee will answer with their 4th dragon, so that's actually significant. Didn't appreciate they were already sitting on 3. The 4th one does put a timer of sorts on the game, but it's so hard to reset all the pressure from the Baron to pick up the next dragon. There's so much position that's going to be in the advantage of LGD for the duration of this Baron buff.
Yeah, and the more times LGD actually manage to win these fights, the easier consecutive fights are going to be to win, just because they're starting to form this gigantic gold differential. You can see 55,000 to 49, a 6,000 gold lead now forming for LGD, and with a Baron buff, they can push with impunity.
And the difference between a one-team fight for Gamtee and a lost team fight for Gamtee is a game of inches. Like we said, just the ability to get into stasis, bought time for Acorn to get into the backline, won LGD that fight. He should consider selling his Sorcerer's Shoes here, Wayless, just for the Mercury Treads, because there's so much CC across the board on both teams. But on the other side of the coin, Gamtee, their fights in the open when they're able to see the linear engage. When they see Kennen in front of them, they're able to navigate away and stop the layering of CC. When they're fighting in the jungle, you saw the potential. If Acorn's ever able to get a flank, hell, if even Wayless can get a flank, these fights will go on LGD's advantage.
Oh, yeah.
They're fighting in the open now. This is the position where maybe they'll be able to navigate away from all the AoE CC coming through from LGD, but they have to hang back away. It's so tentative. They don't want to give away this inhibitor, but realistically, they might have to.
Yeah, and Sync Dream, he used that Event Horizon, didn't find any stuns here, maybe one onto PYL, but it doesn't really matter. They just wandered around it, pick up the inhibitor, and it's easy pickings here for LGD because, of course, Gamtee, they don't want to engage when there's a gigantic wave of super creeps knocking at their door.
It's just a game of flanks, kind of amusing how that's happened. But both teams, despite having all the linear engage, it's been so well disengaged by Gamtee that LGD kind of need a flank, whereas accordingly, Ari is at her best when she's getting a charm for the flank. Whenever Hecarim's splitting away a team and they can get some picks with the Vega Event Horizon, things are going well. The gank push is on though.
Yeah, PYL gets caught by a charm, but he's not the target they want to exploit. They do have the Fate's Call here as well, as Imp is going to save his support. No one's going to fall down just yet for PYL. Not going to be able to re-engage this fight. Charm lands onto Schwen, but he's going to be A-OK. Incredibly tanky now with that Randuin's and, of course, the Banshee's Veil as well. Gamtee successfully defend their inner turret, and the members of LGD are just going to head back.
Try to get the pick to maybe start a bit of aggression for themselves. Doesn't come through. LGD have to back away. They still have a little bit of Baron buff duration. Someone needs to be sent to top lane to deal with the massive minion wave that Gamtee's pushing in. But this game still stays pretty tentative. 6,000 gold lead for LGD, but you feel if Gamtee can get just the right pick or just the right flank, they can win a fight themselves.
Oh yeah, and Xiaohu's now picked up that Void Staff as well as the Abyssal Scepter, Morellonomicon, and Rabadon's Deathcap. He's really starting to scale up into this game, and without those Sorcerer's Shoes, that Void Staff going to be all that more important here for Xiaohu to try and get through all the magic resist that has cropped up on the side of LGD. But with Super Creeps heading through the mid lane, Gamtee definitely on the back foot at this stage, but this has been a roller coaster of a match so far, and we'll see whether LGD do manage to close it out or whether Gamtee have a few more surprises up their sleeve.
You know, he does definitely have a lot of pick potential right now, Xiaohu, but you have to wonder, looking down the LGD lineup, who is he realistically going to get the pick on? Maybe it's Lissandra. Of course, we've already seen Wayless caught up a couple of times. Still has the Sorcerer's Shoes. There is that potential to get the kill before the stasis comes through, either from the ultimate or from the Zhonya's. But very difficult to explode Kennen between the Abyssal Scepter and the armor pickup. It's only really Ari and Graves for the burst damage available on Gamtee's side. Maybe a little bit of burst coming through from the Veigar ultimate, but it feels like the only realistic option is Wayless, and it can go so wrong if they don't kill him before the stasis.
Yeah, the interesting thing is I haven't actually looked down and noticed that Xuen hasn't even died yet on this Vi. 2-0-7, having a great game for himself so far. Just going to steal away these wolves here as well, as Imp going to take the Gromp and then head towards the bottom side, continue this siege onto the last remaining inner turret on the map. LGD looking to see whether they can create the pressure that they need in order to break another one of these lanes, as they easily just switch around and pick it up.
It's actually the second last turret still standing outside the base for both sides. Gamtee got a lot of turrets early to answer the turrets coming through from LGD when the rotations were happening. So global gold is very even. So there's quite a significant advantage in terms of kills and CS coming through to reflect the 6,000, I believe 8,000 gold lead coming through from LGD.
Let me able to get a bit of a push going in this top side of the map, and we'll see whether LGD take any time to try and organize that one. Acorn is looking to move somewhere around there, but he's just going to head towards his team. Teleports are going to be available from both sides, so we could have some split pushing coming through from both Kennen and Hecarim if they want to. Gamtee now straying a little bit further away from their base than they have been able to recently, and we'll see whether LGD use this as an opportunity to possibly engage. But with Dragon up in about 40 seconds, I think that LGD probably want to make sure that Gamtee can't take a sneaky fifth. And Gamtee, they probably want to fight for this.
That's the big thing. They really want the 5th Dragon. It might be the answer to all their prayers and the answer to all their questions. They just have not been able to set up any defensive vision whatsoever.
Yeah, and the fight has definitely broken out here as Acorn able to just delete Sync Dream. You can see Xiaohu around from the outside. Does manage to get some damage down. Does get slowed by the Solar Flare here as well. But Imp's dancing through this fight. The Spirit Rush to come through. Imp just dodges out of the way. Lemmy's going to die with that Frozen Tomb. And Xiaohu over the wall is so incredibly low. Xuen's just... He got Huey out of that fight completely. As Acorn, is he going to land the Shuriken? He is. And that is going to secure almost the ace here for LGD and Gamtee. I think that they may just lose this one right now.
Yeah, the fadeaway Shuriken, after a wonderful engage coming through from Acorn, deleted Sync Dream off the map. So much needed was that Event Horizon in controlling all the subsequent AoE CCs, but they came through. Imp was healthy, got the Ren sets, and LGD, after a long tumultuous game, it looked like Gamtee might have the answer for this CC comp. They just couldn't do it.
Yep, but Troll Inhibitor is going to keep Gamtee around for a little bit longer.
Troll Inhibitor is Troll.
Yep, beautiful work. They do manage to re-destroy it. It's going to mean that Huey might have an opportunity for a potential re-engage. They look to try and go in and defend this Dragon that's going to be started here from LGD. Their health bars are still very low. You can see Lemmy wants to come in with that Onslaught of Shadows, which is back available yet again. Huey setting up for a steal. Can he do it? He doesn't manage to, as Xuen manages to pick that one up. Sync Dream, he's already dead. Tails dead as well, and Imp is getting huge in these fights. A triple kill already. The quadra kill to come through from Imp. And Xiaohu is not there to offer the Penta because, of course, he only just respawned.
Imp happily picks up the padding of the stats. It's down around the back. Xiaohu does get the assassination on Acorn. He thought he was going to teleport in to get into the frame, but no dice.
Didn't quite manage to get there. Xiaohu forced to go back, as well as Imp looking just to end this game. That is an open Nexus available. And Imp just with all of that attack speed going to be able to rip through this Nexus. And GG, well played to LGD. But Gamtee, they made it tough for them.
Absolutely. I was so impressed with Gamtee being able to get back in the mid-game. After a few picks, I thought, okay, Gamtee are going to roll over. The CC engage comp from LGD will be too strong. But a couple of very smart team fights where they could separate threats, prevent the layering of CC. It was about 28, 30 minutes into the game when Acorn finally got a flank and they could layer the CC. The LGD's comp really pushed into top gear. But Gamtee, they made it difficult.
They certainly did. It was actually Wayless having a little bit of a giggle there as well. You can see the members of Gamtee now trying to discuss. A little bit upset about how that one went, but they have an opportunity to answer back here, see whether they can make it a tie with LGD. And That'd be fantastic here. Xiaohu looking very serious.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, they were close. If you felt like if they could really stay on top of the mid game, if they could really separate those threats, keep the vision up to give them exclusive vision, get that pick with Ari, they could win team fights. But the issue with having so many AoE initiation options is that you keep track of 2 of them. If just Akon gets around the back, team fight changes.
Yeah, and despite the fact that Wayless sort of was kept down so effectively early on, still came back, still managed to have that Zhonya's at the right time, that Frozen Tomb always there to get a lot of damage. But let's go to the next game, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to have a short break, but we're going to be back with Game 2 between LGD and Gamtee very soon.